If there's one thing I can be sure of, is that I will overestimate what I can bully my brain into doing. I used to always do a monthly TBR, and in the last few years I've really struggled to stick with that. I have found that I have become quite a mood reader. I like to pick up shiny new things, and my brain just isn't braining how it used to. Add to that a big long period where I really struggled to read anything ebook related or anything on a screen. I could only pick up physical and audio for a while. Despite that, I did not stop requesting books that I was interested in on Netgalley. So this year, I'm starting Project 80%. I am not foolish enough to believe I will get my rating to 80% by the end of the year, but I want to be a lot closer than I currently am. Where do I currently stand? On Netgalley, I currently have 117 books waiting for me to review them, and my feedback ratio 32%. So this year, come along with me on this journey. Join me if you are also finding yourself slightly overwhelmed by your approved books, and let's get our feedback rating higher by the end of 2025.
This is episode 4.
Okay, so I read Eat the Ones You Love by... Great question, Natalie. Who was it by? Sarah. Is it Sarah something? Hang on a moment. Sarah Maria Griffin, yeah. I'm gonna be so for real with you. I kind of forgot this was a Netgalley book, so I didn't record any thoughts as I went along. And I don't know if I can even put into words my thoughts. I finished this yesterday. I've been waiting to try and work out what I think. I haven't even like settled on a rating yet. This is really interesting. I can understand why people would dislike it. I don't even... what I am gonna do is I'm gonna watch Kayla's live show with the discussion of it with Gabby and Jordan to see if any of them vocalize my thoughts. But so it's like I think it's quite often described as like a what's her little House of Horrors. Is that what the show's called, like the stage show / the film? So we follow Nev, who has a florist in like this rundown mall in a small town in Ireland, and it's the mall's going to get closed. And we don't actually follow Nev. Now I've said that, but she's kind of like the crux of the story. Nev owns this florist, and she is influenced / kind of being puppeted by this plant that grows in the mall. There's like a large greenhouse thing in the mall, and it's basically taken over the whole of the mall, and it has discovered that it needs... this is prior to the story, but we have some like flashbacks, and it discovered that it actually needs to consume like humans to grow or to feel fulfilled. And then we follow Michelle, she goes by Shell, and she has recently moved home. She's like in her 30s. She's basically like living that millennial life, unfortunately, where her role, she worked as a marketing or a designer, something along those lines, and her role was made redundant. And then she leaves her fiance because she realizes it's just not what she wants in life, and she moves back home, and in doing so she kind of like loses all of her and her ex-fiance's joint friends, because they were always more kind of his friends than hers. and she just feels like she's really failing, and she is desperately trying to find a job. She's not even getting interviews. As I said, she's living that millennial life. And then she sees a sign in the florist saying that they need an assistant in the florist, and she's like, do you know what, I need a job, it's fine. So she goes in and discusses, and Nev like basically hires her, and she's really upfront. She's like, look, this mall is going to be closed within a year. This isn't a long-term thing, but I just need the help till we close. You have to start at like 4:30 in the morning. That's when the flowers arrive, and and Shell's like, look, I need something in my life. And Shell turns it into, like, she changes her Instagram from like a personal one, and she starts using it as like almost like a business one. And she shares the bouquet she works on and stuff. She's like, I'm that girl now, I'm that florist girl. And so the book, firstly, there's no chapters, which can feel quite confusing, and the book switches between so many POVs. So we have the plants POV, we have obviously Shell's POV, she's our main character. We don't have Nev's POV. Her POV is given to us by the plant because he has all of her memories and stuff. I say he, yeah, no, Nev does refer to the plant as a he. And then we also get emails from Nev's ex-fiance. So Nev was engaged to an American called Jen. One of them, Jan, who had moved. They met online on like a botanical chat room. Jan is a doctor, not like a medical doctor. She's has a doctorate in something to do with plants biology or something. And they meet on like this thread of people who love plants, and then she moves to Ireland to be with Nev, and then they've fallen apart. And we also have emails that Jan is sending to Beck, who is the woman who runs the travel agent in this mall. She's good friends with Nev. All of like the business owners that are left in the mall, there's only like 6 of them or whatever, are like really close friends, obviously. We don't get Beck's emails, but we do get Jan's emails back to her, and they kind of shed some light on what happened between them. And Jan actually met the plant, and that's what made her leave Nev and like escape to another town. She's still in Ireland. And yeah, it's just kind of like chaotic and all over the place. And this is where I sit with it. So I feel like the story was less about cannibal plants. There's also a budding romance between Nev and Shell. So I would say the story is less about cannibal plants, and it's, for me, and I don't know if this is just me reading too much into it or like my personal experiences, it felt very much like a discussion on that millennial inevitability of everything that is supposed to bring you security in life falling apart, and then you have to move back to like your hometown, and quite often back in with your parents, and you kind of feel like you're starting afresh, or like you've taken that step back and you feel like you're a teenager again. And that's kind of how the whole story made me feel, like that feeling of you failed at your career, you failed at your relationship, you don't even have a home that's yours anymore, and you end up moving back home, back in with your parents. You feel like you're a teenager again, you have to follow their rules, and then you end up in a job, like a retail job, that was basically what you did as a teenager. And that sounds so specific, but I do feel like that's probably the reality for so many people.
And I think that how I interpreted the book was that the book is very much about that kind of headspace and having that life, and the cannibal plants was just like a secondary story, and a way to kind of explore the idea of feeling like you're stepping back in life, and how you can try to build something for yourself in those circumstances, and try to rebuild your life when you're at an age that society told you should have everything sorted. Am I reading too much into this book? I don't know. So that's why I want to see some other people's reviews. I've not seen anyone else's reviews on this, and see what they thought of it. But that's also why I have no idea how I'm going to rate this, because I don't know if I've read too much into this. I don't know if I've taken stuff out of this story that was not meant to be there. I just don't know. And I also, at the end of the day, I don't know if I enjoyed this book, and I can't say whether the book succeeded in what it set out to do, because I don't know what its intention was. So I think I need to look into this, and I rarely need to do that with a book. Often the books I tend to read are very set out at the beginning, kind of you go into it knowing what the intention of the book is. So yeah, I don't know. I really don't know how I feel about this. But I guess I'll get back to you when I have a better idea on what I'm going to rate it.
So last I left you, I wasn't too sure what I was going to give Eat the Ones You Love. I have decided on a 3.5. I did watch Kayla's live show and the discussion of it with Gabby and Jordaline, and they brought up some really good points of like the storyline reflecting or surrounding abuse within a relationship, and like coercive control and stuff, which I hadn't read too much into it, but when they were discussing it, I realized, yeah, that is a very heavy theme throughout the book that I just hadn't really picked up on in my first read through. So I think that that's a really interesting take for it, and the more I thought about it, the more I was like, yeah, that is quite obvious. I got so hooked on the discussion of millennials being stuck in their life that I didn't really see that, and it was very interesting. I really recommend going to watch the live show if you're interested in this book. It does have mild spoilers, but to be honest, you could watch that live show and then probably still read the book anyway. So overall, yeah, I think 3.5 is a good place to land on this. I thought this was a debut for the author, and it's not. I don't know why I thought it was a debut. It felt like a debut. So that's interesting. I wonder what her previous books are like. I don't know if I might check them out. We'll see. I'm not in a hurry to anyway. So I just wanted to jump in and say I landed on 3.5. So I finished Air of Storms, and I'm going to be so for real with you. I first couple of chapters in, I was knowing about DNF in this. I'm not sure why. It just wasn't grabbing me. It felt a little kind of lackluster, and actually first few chapters I was like, I just don't think that this is for me. I feel like this is going to be younger YA, and I wasn't really in the mood for it. I am so glad I continued with this book, to the point that I didn't even stop to give you an update. I just wanted to keep reading. I just really wanted to know what was going to happen. The author, Lauren something Murphy or something, she did a really good job at whenever, and this is actually probably going to be a negative for some people. This will probably be the reason that some people lowly rate this book. But whenever something like dramatic or like jaw-dropping happened, she would kind of end the chapter almost in the middle of the action, and then it would go to like our main character Ember the next day reflecting on it. And I know that will bother a lot of people, but I kind of liked it because I'm not a huge fan of like drawn out action sequences or anything like that. I actually find them a bit of a slog to read, and I do kind of zone out a bit when it's things like that. So for me, it was quite ideal. So in this, we follow Ember, who is she's a twin brother, Flint, and they were born in the born as in the family of fire users. This is like magic that's like elemental magic. Flint was born first, and then Ember came out, hence like fire names. But then Ember, and they get like a little mark of whatever element their family is on their hand. And then Ember, like a few weeks old or whatever, cries, or as she was born or whatever, and her mum takes her outside to like soothe her, so it must be a few weeks later, and she actually calls a storm and like devastates so much of the land. And they realize that she's actually a water user, not only a water user but like a storm singer, which are thought to be extinct at this point. So she has her branding mark like removed, and then she has to have a water one put on her other hand. But it means that everyone is scared of her because she brought such destruction as she was born and like killed people. And her family don't really know what to do with her because she's not a fire person, which is what she should be. So we join her as she's on her 17th name day, and she's basically been kept hidden away this whole time, almost like a little princess in a tower. And that was the only way her nan, her grandma who raised her, could think of dealing with her, basically. Her mum unfortunately did die when her younger brother Rexley was born. She died in childbirth, and he's now like 9 years old, and he hasn't shown any powers yet. So they're a little bit concerned that he is like, I can't remember if there was a term for it, but as someone who doesn't have powers, even though they're born into like these powerful families. And in this world, every however many years, it's like 25, 30, whenever the gods decide it, they cause an eclipse to happen. And then when that eclipse happens, that means that it's time for every realm. So of the 4 elements, we've got water, like the aqua people, we've got the fire people, we've got air people, and we've got earth people. Yes, like the 4 elements. It is time for the rulers of each of them, like the king or queen of each of those elements, to step aside and a new person to take their role. And then we also have the emperor, and they're called the Eyes. And this is like a group of people that are like they rule above the kings and queens of the elements, and their thing is like an eye because they're all seeing. And we after Flint and Ember's 17th name day, so Flint hasn't been kept locked up, he's just been allowed to just live his life as he wants. After their 17th birthday, like the day after, this eclipse happens, and basically 4 people of each element, their brand will light up, and that will say that you are an heir, and you have to go to the castle of these like all-seeing emperors to complete some trials and battle to be king/queen of your element. And Flint is obviously picked, which everyone knew, but Ember's also lights up, so she has to go and battle to be queen of the aqua people, even though everyone hates her, and she's never had any training because they didn't know how to train her in her element, for starters, because they're fire people. And secondly, because she killed everyone, everyone's like, she's too strong, so we're not going to train her. We want it to stamp out. And this whole time she's been of the belief that she lost her powers that day and she's actually powerless. So she is like, I'm going to die in these trials, because people can and do die. And off she goes. And it was very much like a mixture of quite a few books I enjoy. So it gave me some elements of it really reminded me of the 3 Black Crowns series, which I love. It also gave me a little bit of elements of the Selection series, which is weird, I know, but it's because she gets into this like weird little kind of romance with the prince, and that just made me think of that a little bit. But I will say romance is quite a small part of this book. It is mostly the like fantasy elements and the trials and trying to survive, etc., in this court that she knows very little about because she's been in like isolation her whole life. And I really enjoyed it, actually, and learning about the different elements and the powers that they weave was really good. And going alongside Ember, she learns what storm singers can do and like learning what they are. It also made me think a little bit of like Zodiac Academy when they're at their element classes, but again, it's a very different vibe. Please don't go into it thinking it's like that. But yeah, I actually really enjoyed this. I'm not sure what rating I'm going to settle on just yet. But I think I will definitely pick up the next book in the series whenever that comes out. And I was able to get a ALC from Libra as well. So I listened to it when I wasn't able to read it on my Kindle, and the narrator was fantastic, absolutely fantastic. She had a very calming voice though, which made me quite tired sometimes. But apart from that, yeah, really, really good. I just really enjoyed this book. It feels like a nice summer read as well. So yeah, if this sounds like something you'd be interested in, if you're interested in trials, if you're interested in elemental magic, it could be for you. I finished Eric LaRocca, the skin, that skin was mine, the skin was mine, and other disturbances. I don't know if it's his most recent one, actually, short story collection. How do I feel about this? I'm consider myself quite a fan of Eric LaRocca. I do have a collection on my shelves. His newer books that I read, I do find they don't seem to quite hit as much or as well as Things Have Gotten Worse Since We Last Spoke did. So I don't know if I'm just becoming quite kind of numb to his style of story. I don't know, but I think other Eric LaRocca fans need to let me know if this is comparable or if it's just me. I thought that the stories were a little... It was 4 short stories, and I felt like whilst the imagery was fabulous across the board, that is something that you cannot knock with Eric LaRocca, I do feel like the twists in some of the short stories were kind of guessable and not so twisty, which I think in a short story is something that shouldn't be happening. Like, they should be punchy and it should shock you. And the first short story in this, which was The Skin Was Mine, The Skin Was Once My Own, whatever it's called, really reminded me of the Sarah Gailey book, Just Like Home, just this one, which was interesting, but I have mixed feelings about that story, the Sarah Gailey one, which yeah. But yeah, I don't know how I'm going to rate it yet. let's talk about Skin Deep by Sung Jae Woo. So this is the first in I believe it's a duology, and this follows a young woman who she is training to become a PI, and then her mentor, who she's learning from, and who owns the PI company, unexpectedly passes away, and she has inherited the PI company, and this happens within like the first 2 chapters. And then she gets pulled into a case for an old friend of hers whose daughter went to college and has since gone missing. And it's kind of like a mixture of Veronica Mars and Murder, She Wrote. It's got a bit of a not so serious and kind of tongue-in-cheek way of writing to it. And I even discuss like Murder, She Wrote in the book as well, and like make a couple of jokes about it. So this, I gave it a 3-star. I gave it 3 stars. It was fun, especially once you realise it's not to be taken seriously. However, some of the things that didn't really work for me is like our protagonist is in the millennial generation, because she's going to a college to investigate this missing girl, or this missing student. There's so much like comments on the generational difference, and she makes a lot of like comparison comments that just feel really kind of out of touch. I mean, I'm a millennial, and I'm kind of like nearing like the older side of millennial, but I'm older than the protagonist in this book, and yet a lot of the comments she was making I wouldn't even make. I don't know, that it felt quite almost like boomer-esque in her comments, and for me it didn't really work. It was really like tech phobic and kind of poking fun at phones and social media. It felt very, very cheap, and not the kind of person I would want to spend time with, so not really the kind of person I would want to read about so much. She also, our main character, also had a great deal of internalized misogyny, which I'm really hoping gets worked out for the second book. I will give the second book a try because it is just a duology. But I must admit, I wasn't shocked to find out that the author was male, just because of the misogyny that was at show throughout the book. If I were to put them aside, the story itself was a fun adventure, which is why I landed on a 3 for this. And I am hoping that perhaps these are like character development traits that will be looked at in the second book. Possibly I'm putting too much faith into the author. I don't know, but I will find out soon. Our main character was a adoptee into America. She came from, she had her like parents, her parents that raised her. She had an Irish dad and a Canadian mum, or the other way around. Yeah, Irish dad and Canadian mum. And she herself was from Vietnam. And so there was some really good discussions surrounding that, and like race and identity, particularly for those that are adoptees. The girl she's trying to find is also an adoptee. So it was very interesting, like those elements were being wound through the storyline, and possibly the author has had some personal experience with a lot of this because they felt really heartfelt and really grounded in reality. Our main character is called Siobhan O'Brien, so there's loads of points where people are just like questioning her name because she doesn't look like that'd be her name, but for me, I was like, I don't think people would do that. But possibly in America, like in the United States, that is something that would happen. You know, if someone who looked East Asian said to me that their name was Siobhan, I'd be like, okay, cool. But maybe in the US, this is something that random people would comment on and not be able to pronounce the word Siobhan. Yeah, the name Siobhan, which is an Irish name, so you know it's quite common for me to see it. Yeah, so I can imagine possibly it would be really hard for someone in her position to just like exist in general, just in a general life, going about life. So again, there was lots of these really interesting conversations that were brought into this storyline, and the storyline itself was very kind of rooted in misogyny and the expectation of women looking young and not being able to grow older and stuff. So I think that really highlighted the misogynistic thoughts and comments from our main protagonist even more, because it showed our main protagonist, who was supposedly like against this herself, had so much internalized misogyny that needed to be dealt with. And again, I don't know if that was a choice or if it was just the author's internalized misogyny, you know. So yeah, a 3. It is, I think it was quite fun. If you enjoy Veronica Mars in particular, I think you would enjoy this. And it had, I think the writing was well done as well. Does anyone get to that point in like the summer where they just hate my hair? I like want to get rid of it. I want to put a fringe in. I want to get rid of it. I don't know. It just keeps touching me. And I need to be able to put my hair up out the way for work, so I can't really do much with it. I've been thinking about getting a fringe in, but then it's going to be in the way when I'm trying to put my hair up out the way for work. So I have finished A Pirate's Life for Tea, and this was fabulous. It was such a fun sequel to Can't Spell Treason Without Tea. I really want to go straight into the third book. This follows our main characters from the first book, Kianth and Raina, and they are off on an adventure and end up helping, they end up splitting up. One of them's helping a pirate, Serena. One of them's helping a constable, Bobby, Bobby is tasked with stopping Serena. Serena's like a Robin Hood-esque pirate. She is taking wheat and other food stores from the Lord, who is hoarding it all, and giving it to the villagers in his Lord Kingdom, in his domain that he is, that are starving to death basically. And they are childhood best friends turned enemies, turned something more maybe. Well, Kianth and Raina are convinced that they are, and they end up on this little swashbuckling adventure, and it was so fun, so fun. I gave the first one 4.5 and this one's a 4.75. I love that they've tied up some of the plot threads that were left from the first book. There's some that are still ongoing, which are obviously going to go into books 3 and or 4. And the epilogue at the end of this, the characters they've introduced that we're going to meet in the third book, I'm very excited to see their story. And the next one's going to be the wedding for Kianth and Raina, which again I'm very excited for. It is just so cozy and fun, and I love them. I love the banter between our main couple, and yeah, it's just really fun. I'm really enjoying learning more about Kianth and Raina, so I'm so pleased that they are the main characters throughout the series and not, as I had initially thought, just in the first books. That's exciting. Right, it's just going to be a quick check-in before I go to work, because I'm around 50% through of Blood and Magic, and I'm going to listen to it at work, so I will probably maybe finish it whilst I'm at work. So now's the time to do a check-in, because I always forget to do one, and then I come with just the end review. So this is this is quite an interesting one. So we mainly follow V and Petra, but there's a lot of other side characters that we also jump to, and the world building is very loosey-goosey. So there's no, I'm halfway through and I just accepted that things are the way they are. It's almost like our world. It's set in like the early 2000s or mid 2000s, something like that. But there's like, it's set in, it's an alternate universe, yeah. So it's like our world, but people are aware that vampires exist. Vampires, witches, I think they're the only kind of supernatural, magical things we've heard of so far. So we follow V, who is a illborn, which is a vampire that was born, not turned, so she ages. Presumably, I assumes a slower pace than humans. That's usually what happens with this kind of storyline. And then we have Petra, who, when she was a teenager, her mother was killed in front of her by a vampire. She refers to him as Fangs. And it was V. And she works for this organisation that eliminates vampires, captures them. Not 100% sure. We've not learned a lot about the organisation as of yet. We just know that Petra works for them. Or rather, she's like a trainee for them. And she's at the point of being made like an official soldier. And then she gets sent on this job. She gets sent on this job to capture a Fang, and it turns out to be V. So it's almost like she's been set up to fuck up. But anyway, and then her and V have an immediate kind of lust for one another, and Petra manages to catch her, and she's like, basically, tell me why I shouldn't kill you because you killed my mum. And V's like, it's not what you thought or whatever. V's a vegetarian. And from what we can gather, she lost control, and that's why she attacked Petra's mum. And V says V has had a prophecy, like heard a prophecy about her, and she's looking for this particular thing that lets them go back in time, because she wants to go back in time and fix something. I don't think it's been confirmed yet what V wants to fix. But in the prophecy, it said that she needs to get help from Petra Malkovich, which is our Petra. So she explains to Petra, look, if I get this whatever that allows me to go back in time, we can stop your mum from dying, but you have to help me. The prophecy says that you will help me. So they're kind of like unwilling co-workers at the moment, and they hate, well, I was going to say they hate one another. Look, V doesn't really hate Petra. Petra hates V, and Petra hates that she is attracted to V, and V is attracted to Petra. And that's kind of where we are at the moment. This is a sapphic book. I don't know how long this series is, but I know this is book 1 in a series. So it's very interesting so far. It's holding my attention, and the audiobook is very well narrated. So yeah, I'll let you know what I think when we're done, I guess. I read Born of Blood and Magic, or Magic and Blood and Magic, Born of Blood and Magic by M.T. Hudson, and that was a sapphic fantasy. It's the start of a series. It's the only one out at the moment. It was fun. It was fast paced. I think I gave it a 4. It was enjoyable. I really liked the characters. Yeah, I quite enjoyed that, and I listened to it as an audio, as an audio arc from Netgalley, and the narrator or narrators, I think it was one narrator, was fantastic, but did different voices very well. I also started and DNF'd Vampires at Sea. I can't remember who the author is. It's only a short story. It's literally like 120 pages, and I DNF'd it at about I think it was like 25%. It was just not for me. I can't really vocalize why just now, but it wasn't capturing me. And honestly, I have so many books that I want to read. I'm not gonna continue reading books that are just not that interesting. But Vampires at Sea, it's just not really, it wasn't really capturing me. And I had, do you know, I had this same complaint about the Pink Argave Hotel by V. Castro, and I read that in one of my Project 80% episodes. It might have been episode 2 or 3. The reason I put that down was because the vampires were just overly sexualized, but in a way that didn't work for me, and this was very much leaning in the same kind of thing. So I don't know, I just wasn't really vibing with it. So where does that leave us for episode 4? We have, let me move over a bit. Obviously I've read 7 books. That is just where I've landed for how many I'm going to read per episode. I was approved for 9, much better than the last few episodes before that. I have 141 to read though, which has gone up, but my ratio has also gone up just slightly, but it's at 36%. But I started the year at 32. I'm still pathetically hoping to get to around 60% by the end of the year. Who knows, maybe in a couple of episodes I'll be dropping this, but I am currently in the middle of next episode, so there won't be as big a break. I really need to get on these arcs. So let me know if you have read any of these. Let me know your current arc read, whether it's on Netgalley or otherwise. If you want to say hi but don't have a book you want to mention, just drop a plant emoji in the comments for the ones you love. And I will see you soon for another video. Make sure to subscribe and like so you never miss a video from me. Thank you for spending time with me today, friends. Bye.